Hello, everybody. We were not expecting to go live tonight, but we decided that we might as well give it a go. And so we are online and going to talk through some of the Model S and Model X refreshes, and also the Q4 announcement, and listen into that. So tonight we've got myself, Josh, and Andy on the call. So say hello, guys. How are you?
Hey everybody, good. Will, how are you?
Yeah, not so good, not so bad, thank you. Yeah, I was about to go to bed, but then we thought, well, it looks quite interesting to stay up, and I think the new Model S and Model X refreshes have given us plenty to talk about in the last few minutes. No, I don't have a beer is the answer. I might go and get one. How are you, Andy?
I realised I forgot.
Good. I mean, it's been quite an exciting hour or so, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Yeah,
they were updated on the UK site. Now they've gone from the UK site. It's like,
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
For me, that's almost one of the biggest things is that no S and X this year.
Yeah, so for those that hadn't seen the news yet, Model S and Model X got refreshed. It was all online on a US store, then it came over to the UK store. And then if you go on Tesla.com now on the UK store, they have removed S and X from the menu, but they are still available. You can order them, and people have ordered them in the UK, but you have to go sort of via the link that's not visible. So sort of /EN_GB/Model S or Model X for that. So yeah, pretty crazy. So what do we think of the spec change?
It's interesting for me. I think for me personally, I was looking probably sort of this time next year, I'll be looking for a new car, and I was sort of set on following up our current Model 3 with maybe Model 3 Performance, but the long range S has now got my eye a little bit. I think we was kind of always thinking about keeping a bigger car, and I think that might sway it. It's going to depend. It depends on the deliveries and things, obviously. That's going to have a big impact, I think, and availability and that sort of thing. But it's interesting. I like the look of it personally.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty weird because the website was showing 2021 for at least one of the UK models, but then that changed to 2022. So either lots of people have ordered and they've run out of the allowance of cars, which is probably slightly unlikely, or like we say, Model S and X will be basically about a year from maybe now before we see them in the UK in the new form factor. So should we start with Model S, go through some of the features that have been announced? Not everything's been announced. There are obviously some things that are still hidden. But I think if, Josh, you're going to pull up the Tesla.com thing. The first thing that sort of reached out to me, there's a new premium speaker system. So there's a 22 speaker audio system with active noise cancelling. That's going to be really interesting and see how they can use active noise cancelling, whether that's going to use exterior microphones or if it's just within the cabin. That'd be quite an interesting thing to see. Music and media over Bluetooth, multi-device. I'm pretty sure that it did multi-device before. There's obviously three new screens. So we've got the 17-inch display, a 12.3 display, 12.3-inch display for the driver, and then there's also a rear screen in the back for children.
Yeah, so the interesting thing on the rear screen is that the question for me, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I think obviously we've never been able to use Netflix or anything whilst driving for obvious reasons, driver distraction and everything like that. But for somebody with young children or similar, or basically anybody in the back, I'm wondering that rear screen, I think that can be enabled whilst we're driving, and potentially a bit of Netflix and that sort of thing. And I did see mention of gaming as well, and some improvements on that. So for kids, again, in the back, I know a lot of our owners, it's an ongoing joke, isn't it, the development of games, and we don't really need them and things, but maybe this sort of been leading up to sort of entertainment in the back for the kids, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they're calling it the gaming computer with 10 teraflops of processing power. I'm not sure how that compares to sort of an Xbox. Maybe someone in the comments might be able to tell us the difference. Teraflops sounds impressive, but yeah, got no idea. But there is the wireless controller compatibility as well, which sort of goes hand in hand with gaming. Lots of people, I think, in S and X and also Model 3 are using sort of a hacked version of that with a little wireless controller, but that sounds like it's coming in directly, which is, I guess, cool if you've got kids in the back and maybe on those odd supercharger times where you're bored. But it's obviously not the main thing about the new car. I don't know if you can see any of the other photos, Josh. You might be better on the US website.
I was going to say, I think
go back to that, the interior, so the new interior photos, which most people have seen. You can see those new screens. There's also the new steering wheel, which I can't see it coming to the UK. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, it looks odd, doesn't it? I actually quite like it. And by the way, if you look on Electrek, they've got other pictures. So there's other pictures published somewhere else. So Josh, if you look there.
Yeah, I can text you there.
There are
we
other
can get back to here afterwards, can't we? Give me
Tesla has like a media portal where they've pushed pictures out there.
I'll get that up whilst we're chatting along. But the wheel for me, I think we'll see a conventional wheel, steering wheel in the UK. I don't think we'll get the sort of half wheel. I think it's
though is you will see the binnacle better. You know you
will do certainly,
in front of you, but it's going to seem a bit. But isn't that from the Roadster?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That was the.
Yeah, it looks very similar.
It looks very similar to that. I tried to get a look inside the prototype Roadster when I visited it in Grand Basel, but they blacked it all out. But obviously, there was YouTube videos, wasn't there, where people getting rides and things in it, and it looks very similar.
So you should be able to see on the screen there, the Xbox X has 12 teraflop GPU. So it sounds like it's comparable to that. I don't know much more.
So I'll just go. Thank you.
These pictures are new. I've not see that looks great to me.
Yeah, so for those that haven't seen the news, they're getting rid of the stalks, basically. So to the left of the wheel, there's the indicators. Obviously, it may change if it's right-hand drive, but from this photo, it certainly is. And then I presume you've got the standard wheels, which will go up and down and side-to-side clicking, which is the same as 3 and Y. So it's very similar in that regard. For me, it's like, where's the airbag? I mean, it looks quite small, that airbag area.
Yeah.
And you've got that roof view as well.
Looking down a bit further so you can see that.
Because they suggest that roof is new. I mean, because you've got the roof on your car, Will, haven't you? I mean,
yeah. I've got the all glass roof on mine. I'm trying to see.
To me, that looks different, but I don't know if it's the angle of the photo.
Well, that looks like the X. I can't think of the. I'm just having a look now. If that looks like the X roof, where it's one continuous piece.
Yeah, but then you'd have a bar over the back of the front seats, because the X roof only goes up to.
True. Yes. True.
That is bigger even than the Free, because the Free has a bar, of course, again as well.
Yeah.
I suspect, so there must presumably there's a bar coming across that you don't kind of see.
Yeah. What time we've got? Is it past? We've got for the.
Yeah, it's 20 now.
So we better.
Anytime now. We can resume back at this afterwards, can't we?
So we think tonight's going to be audio for those wanting to listen in and join. So we'll go off camera, but anything that jumps out, we may comment on. But we're going to be in the comments throughout, and then afterwards we'll have a sort of roundup and chat, and maybe go through some of those photos that. For those that didn't see them, but until it's live, we'll carry on talking.
It's audio only confirmed.
Yeah, it's audio only.
Seen that now, so
for a few other changes, so we've got heated seats for every passenger. That was the same. Heated steering wheel, again, that's been fine. Heated windshield. I can't remember on S.
I don't think it has a heated wheel. I certainly don't. I don't remember seeing it in the old winter pack when that was an option.
Yeah, because you used to have heated. It was the area, from memory, it was the area where this wiper blades sit, that was heated. But I don't know if this is any different, if it means, you have that bar up the side of the windscreen. That might be really good if for some of our winter owners. Ventilated front seats are returning, so that's good. The new Airwave cabin heating and cooling, so it's the same as Model 3 and Model Y. Is it tri-zone in Model 3?
Tri-zone Model 3? I don't believe so. I believe it's two-zone.
Two zones. So an extra zone there. The HEPA filter, which is already on the car. Custom driver profiles with automatic easy entry and exit. That's the same. Ambient lighting's the same. Tinted glass roof. There's potential that it's a newer roof. Okay, someone in the comments. Thanks, Michael. I've got a heated screen on my S. So we don't know if that is any different or if that's the same as what it is now. Ultraviolet and infrared protection on all glass. I think that's the same. The ultraviolet maybe different. Front center console, which is obviously different with the sliding cup holders and storage, and integrated storage and wireless charging. So there's wireless charging actually in the rear seats as well.
That's good.
Seen. So you've got them in the front like like 3 and Y, but you've also got them now in the back. Automatic opening and closing rear liftgate, which is the same. The mirrors are the same. Cargo space, I presume, is the same, 28 feet. Wireless and USB fast charging for every passenger. So that's an improvement, I believe. And location-aware garage door opener, that's standard. The phone key is probably the biggest one of those new ones. Same as 3. That's something that lots of S and X owners have wanted for a while, myself included. Premium connectivity, 1 year complimentary. Now that I think is on the is that on the long range? I read somewhere it's 3 years. Elsewhere.
Yeah.
How's have we got audio yet from?
No. We're still listening to classical music on the audio at the minute. So I'll sort of interrupt you as we come online, I guess.
Cool. And the most important thing, and I think we should almost have a drum roll, is there are now door pockets on the which is probably one of the biggest asks that we've had over the years.
To be honest, I'm not sure about everybody else. I tend to use my passenger footwell for the door pockets instead, but
You heard them.
I'm just having a look at some of the other photos. So it looks like there's a new air quality. I don't know if you can see that photo. Let me send it to you, Josh. There's a new UI for the air quality as well, which isn't crazily exciting. But so exterior refresh. It doesn't seem like there's much. There's a new front bumper, but if you actually
we're about to start, Will, I think.
Okay, we're about to start. Cool. So yeah, we're going to chat in the comments and go from there. So.
To ask a question during the session, you will need to press star 1 on your telephone. Please be advised that today's conference is being recorded. If you require any further assistance, please press star 0. I would now like to hand the conference over to your speaker, Mr. Martin Vieca, Senior Director of Investor Relations. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Sherry, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Tesla's fourth quarter 2020 Q&A webcast. I'm joined today by Elon Musk, Zachary Kirkhorn, and a number of other executives. Our Q4 results were announced at about 1 p.m. Pacific time in the update deck we published at the same link as this webcast. During this call, we will discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. These comments are based on our predictions and expectations as of today. Actual events or results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC. During the question and answer portion of today's call, please limit yourself to 1 question and 1 follow-up. Please press star 1 now if you'd like to join the question queue. But before we jump into Q&A, Elon has some opening remarks. Elon?
Thank you. So just to recap the year, 2020 was a defining year for us on many levels. Despite a challenging environment, we reached an important milestone of producing and delivering 500,000 cars. I'd just like to once again thank the people of Tesla for an incredible effort. We delivered almost as many cars last year as we produced in our entire history. So really an incredible growth rate. and despite a very challenging 2020. So my hat is off. It's such an honor to work with such great people at Tesla. So, and for the year, we achieved free cash flow of nearly $2.8 billion after spending more than $3 billion on building new factories and other expenditures. We reached industry-leading GAAP operating margin in addition to positive net income and record cash flow. Regarding capacity expansion, while we focus on execution, we continue to build a lot of new capacity. We started producing the Model Y out of Fremont and have almost reached full production speed. We ramped the Model 3 in Shanghai to more than 5,000 cars a week sustainably, and Shanghai continues to grow rapidly. We introduced the heat pump to all of our vehicles. We ramped the single piece. We started and were able to ramp to volume production the single piece castings for Model Y. This is where, for the first time in history, the entire rear third skeleton of the car is being cast as a single piece in the largest and most advanced casting machine ever made. We built a Model Y factory in China from start to finish in 1 year. We're also building Giga Berlin and Giga Texas, which we expect to start production later this year. And lastly, we built a battery cell factory in the Bay Area. And this, even though it is a pilot plant, its capacity is large enough that it would be in probably the top 10 battery cell factories on Earth, despite being a pilot plant. Regarding the new Model X, S and X, we are launching we're super excited to announce the new Model S and Model X Plaid are in production now and will be delivered in February. So
unless you live in the UK,
we've been able to bring forward the Plaid, Model S and X, and so Model S will be delivered in February and Model X a little later. The Model S Plaid, we're actually in production now, and we'll be delivering next month. So this is a tri-motor Model S with a completely new interior. There are actually a lot of great things about this. I'll do another call about the Model S later, but it's really a tremendous improvement over the prior version. And the Model S will be the first. This Model S Plaid will be the first production car ever that is able to go 0 to 60 miles an hour in under 2 seconds. So no production car ever has been able to get below 2 seconds, 0 to 60. This is a luxury sedan that is able to go 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds, and will have the ability to seat up to 7 people with the third row seats. So this is pretty nuts. This is faster, to be clear, than any car. It's not like there was a different type of car, like a two-door sports car, that was able to do better faster than this. This is the fastest accelerating car ever made that is allowed to go on roads in history. And like I said, we'll start delivering it in a matter of weeks. And just, and like I said, I'll do something that gets into the details of all the Model S changes, maybe later this week or next. But it's really better in many ways. We will be actually raising the price of Model S for this new model. So people who got the old model, the new model will be $10,000 more. So hopefully people aren't too upset if they bought the old model last month, but this one's $10K more. So yeah, we think it's probably the best car of any kind at any price available in the world today. So, then with regard to full self-driving, we've made massive progress on full self-driving. If I recommend watching the videos of our public beta. So we've got, I think, almost 1,000 people in the beta at this point, and with each successful release of the beta of the FSD software, it's really improving rapidly. It's now very common for I drive the latest builds. It's very common for me to have no interventions on drives that I do, including drives to places I've never been to. So these are not pre-planned routes. They're the car's never been there before, and it's now actually it's more common than not for the car to have no interventions, even on a complex drive. So, and this is like basically, I'm highly confident the car will be able to drive itself with a reliability in excess of human this year. This is a very big deal. And thinking about, like, you know, how does one justify the value of the company being where it is? And I think there is a way, just with back of the envelope math, to potentially justify it, where, you know, if Tesla ships, let's say hypothetically, $50 or $60 billion worth of vehicles, and those vehicles become full self-driving and can be used in robotaxis, used as robotaxis, their utility increases from an average of 12 hours a week to potentially an average of 60 hours a week if they're capable of serving as a robotaxi. So that's like roughly a 5x increase in utility. But let's, even if you say, like, okay, well, let's just assume that the car becomes twice as useful as, not 5 times useful, but merely twice as useful. That would be a doubling again of the revenue of the company, which is almost entirely gross margin. So it would mean it would be like, okay, if you made $50 billion worth of cars, it would be like having $50 billion of incremental profit, basically, from that, because it's just software. So, and if that were the case, then yeah, if you do 20 PE on that, it's like $1 trillion, and the company's still in high growth mode. So I think there is a way to sort of, like, you know, justify the valuation of the company where it is, using just the cars and nothing else, cars with FSD. And I suspect at least some number of investors are taking that approach. So in conclusion, while 2020 was a turning point for Tesla, and in terms of profitability, we believe this is just the beginning. We think 2021 is going to be even more exciting, and you know, you don't know what to expect in a given year. Obviously, last year we did not. There were many things we did not expect. But assuming that 21 is a relatively normal year from an external standpoint, I think it's going to be a great year for Tesla. We've got a ton of, many great new products coming out. We've got factories that are advanced factories that are going to start up production. It'll also make it easier having a factory in Berlin, one in Texas that can, just from a logistics standpoint, Texas can help supply the eastern half of the U.S. and Berlin can help supply Europe. And there's just fewer cars on boats, much less capital tied up with the cars that are on boats or being transported to customers. And I think the fundamental efficiency of the company will be much better with the factories, at least having factories on each continent and having 2 factories in the U.S. So I'm super excited about the future, and really look forward to making it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think our CFO, Zach Kirkhorn, has some opening remarks as well.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. As Elon mentioned, 2020 has been an extremely successful year while managing through many unforeseen and unexpected challenges. On cash, we continue to generate strong free cash flows, reaching a record $1.9 billion in Q4, alongside growth and investment for future programs. Additionally, we've been able to reduce our use of debt and various working capital lines, including settling $2 billion of convertible debt in Q4, which will continue into Q1. For net income, we achieved our first calendar year and 6 sequential quarters of profitability. In addition, auto gross margin excluding credits improved from 2019 to 2020, despite reductions in ASP and inefficiencies from new product launches and transitions. On Q4 specifically, this was a noisy quarter, so let's unpack a few things. Stock-based comp increased, part of which is driven by the rise of the stock price over the course of our 2020 employee performance grant process, and a portion of which is unique to Q4 only. The impact of SBC increases is seen across both COGS as well as operating expenses. Automotive gross margin in Q4 was primarily impacted by two things. First, we invested in improving our products built in Fremont, including converting over to the new Model S and Model X, launching the single-piece castings on Model Y, and introducing heat pump on Model 3. Second, logistics and labor costs were impacted due to supply chain instability and pandemic inefficiencies. Adjusting for items such as these, as we do in our internal management views, we saw an improvement in auto gross margin. Our services and other P&L was impacted by many of the same factors just mentioned, including onboarding costs associated with new service capacity. However, what's most important here is that we've accelerated the growth in service capacity and will continue to drive capacity expansion as fast as possible. On energy gross margin, we saw an impact from solar roof-related ramp costs and typical seasonality in the lease PPA business. OPEX as a percentage of revenue continues to reduce despite impacts from items mentioned, as well as increased investment in development of future products. Finally, the early settlement of our convertible notes resulted in an additional $100 million of interest expense for the quarter. All that being said, nothing has changed about our view that operating margin will continue to grow and remain industry-leading. As we look forward, 2021 may be our most meaningful step forward yet, as we see the benefits of long-standing investments in capacity and technology. The range of possible outcomes this year is wide, given the magnitude of launches. Thus, a few things we should keep in mind. We continue to expect a long-term volume CAGR of 50%, of which we may materially exceed this in 2021. As we increase production rates, volumes will skew towards the second half of the year, and ramp inefficiencies will be a part of this year's story and are necessary to achieve our long-term goals. Specifically for Q1, our volumes will have the benefit of early Model Y ramp in Shanghai. However, S and X production will be low due to the transition to the newly re-architected products. Additionally, we're working extremely hard to manage through the global semiconductor shortage as well as port capacity, which may have a temporary impact. We will continue to invest heavily in supercharging and service capacity while driving reductions on cost, including OPEX as a percentage of revenue. Global demand continues to outpace production, and we're moving as quickly as we can with a focus on the long term. I look forward to providing updates on progress throughout the year.
Thank you very much. And now we can jump straight into questions from Say Technologies. The first question from institutional investors is, what is currently holding Tesla back from being the market share leader in solar?
Yeah, so we're actually seeing tremendous growth in solar quarter over quarter last year. And we had our best quarter since, I think, 2018 in Q4. So we do actually expect to become the market share leader in solar and then go far beyond that. Unfortunately, there were a few years there where we had to devote the whole company to Model 3 production and building. We have to basically take the whole company, including a bunch of people that were on solar, and have work on cars. But now we've got a little more bandwidth. We're putting a lot of attention on solar, and it is growing rapidly. So I think it will not be long before Tesla is by far the market leader in solar.
Another really important part of the solar strategy is achieving an industry-leading cost structure, which then allows us to have industry-leading pricing. And so that's something that we've accomplished over the last year in terms of getting the cost structure in the place that it needs to be. And as Elon mentioned, this is a really important part with industry-leading pricing to become the leader in the space.
Yeah, and actually an important part is achieving better integration between the Tesla Powerwall and the Tesla retrofit solar and Tesla roof. And we're confident we'll have excellent integration with the Powerwall and Tesla solar, whether it's retrofit or the solar glass roof before the end of the year. So it's really, I think we've got a good strategy. As Zach mentioned, we're focused on reducing the amount of time and the complexity of the install, and we're making great progress in that regard. And I think we'll have something that's really dialed in this year.
Thank you. The second question is, could current owners get ability to transfer their FSD to their next vehicle? This would be a huge for loyalty and overall increased sales of vehicles while offering more FSD sales on used vehicles.
Unfortunately, we're not considering that at this time. We do actually offer an increased, a higher price than for a car with FSD than the one without FSD. And I do think that the market currently undervalues, or the consumer market and arguably the stock market does probably undervalue just how good FSD is going to be. But we're not currently planning on allowing it to get transferred.
Thank you.
We will be offering subscription pretty soon in the next month or two. So that should address a lot of people's concerns for being able to get it.
Thank you very much. And the third question is, can you give us a progress update on dry coating of the battery electrode? At the battery day, Elon said, I would not say this is completely in the bag yet as the yields were low.
Drew?
Yeah, sure. It's true. The in-house cell manufacturing system we revealed at Battery Day contained new processes and equipment. So we did expect some unknown unknowns and technical challenges to arise through the production ramp. The Cato team, however, has been able to solve each manufacturing problem presented to date and continues to improve yield and rate week over week and month over month as we move up the production S-curve. At the same time, the cell engineering team's refined designs and deepened understanding has reinforced our confidence in the drive process and 4680 design, meeting our performance and cost targets. And from a capacity perspective, we have 10 gigawatt hours worth of equipment landed at Cato. The production staff is nearly all hired. Our material supply chain is established, and the team is on track for full production ramp this year. Meanwhile, we've developed enough engineering confidence with our 4680 design and the production process and equipment to kick off manufacturing equipment and facility construction to support our 100 gigawatt hour 2022 goal.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is, why are you confident Tesla will achieve level 5 autonomy in 2021, and why is Dojo not necessary to get there?
I guess I'm confident based on my understanding of the technical roadmap and the progress that we're making between each beta iteration. As I was saying, it's now not remarkable at all for the car to completely drive you from one location to another through a series of complex intersections. It's now about just improving the corner case reliability and getting it, to 99.9999% reliable with respect to an accident. Basically, we need to get it to better than human by a factor of at least 100% or 200%. But this is happening rapidly because we've got so much training data with all the cars in the field, and the software is improving dramatically. We also write the software for labeling, and I must say it is quite challenging. We're moving everything towards video labeling, so it's all video labeling, all video inference, and so there's still a few of the neural nets that need to be upgraded to video training and video inference, and really as we've transitioned each net to video, the performance has become exceptional. So this is like a hard thing. The video, the labeling software that we wrote for video labeling, making that better has a huge effect on the efficiency of labeling. And then, of course, the holy grail is auto labeling. So we're putting a lot of work into having the labeling tool be more efficient when used by a person, as well as enabling auto labeling where we can. Dojo is a sort of training supercomputer We believe it will be, we think it may be the best neural net training computer in the world by possibly an order of magnitude. So it is a whole thing in and of itself. And this is something we could offer potentially as a service. So if others need neural net training, we're not trying to keep it to ourselves. So I think Dojo could be a whole line of business in and of itself. And then, of course, for training vast amounts of video data and getting the reliability from, say, 100% to 200% better than average human to 2,000% better than average human. So it will be very helpful in that regard.
Thank you. The next question is, what is Tesla's current gigawatt-hour run rate of the 4680 cell production? How do you see this run rate evolving by mid-2021 or end of 2021?
I think we kind of talked about that, Drew. I mean, essentially what we're saying is that the number to think about, to focus on, is like we've got 100 gigawatt-hour total that Tesla cells produced in 2022. It's not that important to look at the run-up to there because these things tend to improve exponentially. But we are installing capacity for it, in 2022 for 200 gigawatt-hours a year. And we think probably we should be able to achieve 50% of targeted design capacity in 2022.
Yeah, agreed, Elon. And as you've said before, with the S-curve of production, you can be off a little bit on the initial part of the S-curve, and that makes a difference in absolute capacity by quite a bit 1 month to the next. So yeah, I mean, we are progressing up that S-curve as fast as we possibly can.
Yeah, and we don't see any showstoppers. So.
Yep. Thank you very much. And one more question from retail investors. What is Tesla doing to improve service experience? Tesla had a reputation for outstanding customer service. Now it's impossible to even call a service center, and appointments are scheduled weeks out. Jerome?
Yes. Well, first, best service, no service. So we spent a lot of effort trying to improve the quality and the reliability of our cars. In the last 2 years, the frequency of service visits are reduced by 1/3. So customers have to come less frequently in service, which is really the goal, no service. And if service has to take place, we're trying to make it as painless as possible. One big effort there is to increase mobile service, which is now more than 40% of all visits in North America. We're trying to push that to 50% this year. In 50% of service visits last less than 2 hours. So we're trying to service the cars very quickly so people can get their vehicles back on the road. And in terms of service appointment, it continues to improve. We have actually 140 service centers right now in North America. For 100 out of those 140, you can get appointments in less than 10 days. And we're going to make sure it's all service centers have a short wait time. We're accelerating, as Zach mentioned earlier, the pace of opening. In North America, we opened 11 centers in December, and we have plans to open 46 in the first half of this year. So that's what we're doing to improve service. In terms of phones, our emphasis is on the app. Really, we want all communications to go through the app, the Tesla app, and we're trying to move away from the phone. The app is much better than the phone. It can spot alerts directly from the car and schedule a service appointment. There is a written record of all communication between the customer and the service team. You can have pictures in there. You can take care of your payment without entering the credit card and doing all that stuff. You get updates on the service. And there's even more features that are going to come in the coming months in the app, and that I think everybody will be happy, including the ability to spot where your service technician is. and how far it is to coming from your car and what's going on there. So we are investing everything on the app, I think just like most other companies as well, and that's the way of the future.
Thank you very much. And now let's go to institutional investor questions. The question number one, what are the key milestones we need to achieve in order to evolve current FSD to a commercial level 4, level 5 ride-sharing solution?
Yeah, so it really goes back to what I was saying a moment ago, which is we need to transition over the neural nets in the car to video. And in order to do that, the whole stack has to be, stack has to be changed to video. So that means gathering video clips, then using, and this is actually surround video. So you've got 8 cameras operating simultaneously with synchronized frame rates. So you've got basically 8 frames surround video, 8 cameras surround video. And then you've got to label basically everything in that video snippet, and then train against that, and then have those neural nets operate the car. And this is coming from the past where we would label the neural nets would be a single camera, single frame. So no video. And not combining the cameras, and then we went from single frame, 1 frame at a time, 1 camera at a time neural nets to surround camera neural nets, where it would look at all images from all 8 cameras, but only 1 frame at a time, and now to where we include the time dimension, and that's video. So. I really just see this as a question of getting the work done. We're getting it done, and you can see the results in the rapidly improving FSD betas that are released. And we're also going to be expanding the FSD beta itself to include more and more people. So, and from my standpoint, it looks like a very clear and obvious path towards a vehicle that will drive, 100% safer than a person. Yeah, I really do not see any obstacles here. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And the second question from institutionals is, does Tesla plan or expect to license any of its software applications, FSD, and AutoBidder in particular, to third-party OEMs?
I think we're very open to licensing our software to third parties. And we've had some preliminary discussions about licensing Autopilot to other OEMs. So this is something we're more than happy to do. But I think obviously we need to probably do a little bit more work to prove that Tesla Autopilot is capable of full self-driving, which, like I said, I think will become obvious later this year. And then we're more than happy to license that to other car companies. We're definitely not trying to keep it to be a Tesla exclusive situation. And I think that probably the same goes for AutoBidder. We haven't thought as much about AutoBidder, but the Tesla philosophy is definitely not to create walled gardens. We're going to allow other companies to use our supercharger networks, using our autonomy software and AutoBidder and perhaps other things would be fine too.
Thank you. The next question is, key differences in product customer preferences, FSD strategy between China and the rest of the world. Do we need to do things differently to win the Chinese EV market?
Well, we currently are winning we are currently the leader in the Chinese EV market. So I think we must be doing something right if we're the best-selling electric car in China. That said, very few of our customers in China, I think it may be as low as 1 or 2%, actually have selected the FSD option. This is much lower than the rest of the world. We definitely need to make it work well in China. I think as soon as it works well in China, then we will have high take rate for FSD. I find the customers in China, Tesla owners in China, are among the most discerning in the world. Their attention to detail is incredible. So I'm confident that they will buy FSD as soon as it is working well in China. And hopefully that is later this year.
Thank you. And the next question is it fair to argue that the best way to think about companies' long-term earnings power is tied to profit per unit of battery capacity? 3 terawatt-hours target from battery day implies half of long-term battery capacity goes to storage, depending on what you assume for pack size on Elon's 20 million vehicle unit goal.
It is. So the fundamental limit on electric vehicles right now, in general, is availability of cells. What's the output of battery cells in gigawatt hours? And you can't grow faster than that. Now, at Tesla, we've improved the efficiency of our cars dramatically, such that you can actually get pretty good range even with the standard range battery pack. It's in the high. It's approaching for Model 3. It's approaching the sort of high 200s, and with some slight continued improvements, we'll start to get to 300-mile range, even with a standard pack, and on order of 500 kilometers. So there's efficiency improvements in the car, but fundamentally the growth is dependent on cell production. And there's also a lot of other companies that have a need for cells. So the reason Tesla is doing its own cell production is in order to accelerate the growth. It is not to make less use of our cell suppliers. In fact, I want to be really clear. Tesla wants to increase purchases from cell suppliers, and we've been very clear with our cell suppliers, whether it be CATL or Panasonic or LG, that we will take as many batteries as they can produce. So, and we urge them to increase their production, and we will buy as much as they can send to us. Obviously, there's some price limits on that because the car still needs to be affordable. But I'm just trying to be as clear as possible that our goal with making our own cells is not to disintermediate our suppliers. It is to supplement our suppliers. And we want our suppliers of cells to increase their production and, in addition, have our own production that is simply taking up the amount beyond which they are either unable or unwilling to increase their production. So it's an acceleration over and above what the most that our suppliers say they can produce for us. And so probably since the cell output drives vehicle output, probably the broad brushstroke value of Tesla is just what's the cell output that implies vehicle output, and then at least double that for autonomy revenue, probably more than double, and that's how you figure out the value of the company, I think, long term.
Thank you very much. The next question is about 4680 cells, which we already covered in the retail section of this call. So let's go straight to the last question from institutional investors, which is, where are you in Cybertruck development? What are your expectations for Cybertruck deliveries in 2021?
Right. So we finished almost all of the Cybertruck engineering. So we're no longer iterating at the design center level or design level. We've got the design fixed. We're getting to we'll soon order the equipment necessary to make the Cybertruck work. We're actually going to be using even bigger casting machines for the rear body of Cybertruck because you've got obviously a bigger vehicle and you've got a long truck bed that's going to support a lot of load. So we'll be using an 8,000-ton casting press for the rear body casting as opposed to a 6,000-ton for Model Y. So 6,000 ton was the biggest casting press in the world. 8,000 ton, obviously, quite a bit bigger than that. And I think it's going to be an incredible vehicle. If we get lucky, we'll be able to do a few deliveries towards the end of this year, but I expect volume production to be in 2022.
Thank you very much. And now we can start with questions in the queue.
Thank you. Our first question will come from Colin Rusch with Oppenheimer. Please go ahead.
Thanks so much, guys. Could you talk a little bit about the regulatory environment for FSD and how you're seeing that play out? Obviously, it's a bit of a moving target right now, and you guys are leading the way here, but we'd love to understand how those conversations are going and how you see that impacting the rollout of FSD throughout the balance of this year and into next year.
Okay. So Zach, do you want to start that, or Zach and Jerome?
You know, what we're seeing right now in the U.S., for example, is a pretty dynamic space, but it's overall not particularly limiting on a rule basis. But what we're going to expect is to have to work with regulators to demonstrate really, really high reliability, as Elon said before. The rest of the world's fairly dynamic. In Europe, we see a general slowdown, generally not reaching past level 3 right now, with some impetus to start working on new working groups to reach past that. And China showed an interest in working on level 4 or even level 5 later this year. So we expect a pretty dynamic 2021 in the regulatory space, with leadership in the U.S. looking for manufacturers to demonstrate really good launches and really high reliability before releasing to wider and wider groups.
Thanks, guys. And then just a quick follow-up around inflation on some of the materials markets. Obviously, there's a lot going on as low interest rates flow through the basic materials space. Can you talk a little bit about the supply chain and how you're mitigating some of your exposure around some of your raw material costs?
And this is Jerome. Yeah, for supply chain, the first priority now is to deal with the disruptions from COVID and shipping, in particular boats between Asia and North America. But we're also looking forward to pricing, and we're watching this very closely for all the components. We are entering a series of long-term agreements with preferred suppliers to ensure that not only we're going to have enough quantity to support the growth, 50% CAGR, as Zach mentioned earlier, but also good pricing with appropriate sharing of the risks.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Dan Levy with Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Two questions, one on 21 and just one on capital. First on 21, any expectations for what we should see on regulatory credit sales? And then the second question is on capital. Obviously, you raised a lot of capital in 2020. You know, what should we think about for use of those funds beyond just covering some of the maturities? And can you just give us a sense of what the elevated liquidity does and doesn't buy? Meaning, to what extent does elevated capital enable you to accelerate plans on building capacity or expanding vertical integration, accelerating timing on full self-drive features? So those are the questions. Thank you.
Sure. On the regulatory credit sales side, this isn't always an area that's extremely difficult for us to forecast. 2020 regulatory credit sales ended up being higher than our expectations, and it's difficult to give guidance on that. I mean, what I've said before is that in the long term, regulatory credit sales will not be a material part of the business, and we don't plan the business around that. It's possible that for a handful of additional quarters, it remains strong. It's also possible that it's not. You know, most of our regulatory credit revenue from Q4 was not lined up prior to the beginning of the quarter, and these were discrete deals that were struck over the course of the quarter. So I wish I could give you more on this, Dan, but it's a space that's extraordinarily difficult for us to forecast. On the second side, with respect to capital, A couple of things that we're thinking through there. So as I mentioned in my opening remarks, debt reduction is an important thing that we're focused on now. Early conversions, these are things we don't have a choice on. We did around $2 billion of that in Q4. We currently have $1.4 billion that we expect to go out in Q1 as a result of early conversions or conversions on convertible debt. That number may increase. And so debt reduction is important. That's helpful on interest expense as well. We are also using the money with respect to our investments in future capacity. And so what we're able to do now that we haven't had the opportunity to do in the past is as we're building capacity, particularly in Austin and Berlin, we can build that capacity with the expectation of what the end state of capacity will be, pulling forward some of those investments, rather than incrementally adding capacity as we go along. And so this is an important part in terms of capital efficiency that we haven't had the luxury to do in the past. And it's great to be able to have the liquidity to focus on that. And then more broadly, as Jerome was touching on, service expansion is really important to the future strategy of the company. So as you saw in our Q4 numbers, the expansion of service centers and mobile service from Q3 to Q4 increased quite a bit and was also quite a bit higher than the first part of the year. And so we're able now to make investments there and also in the supercharging network to get ahead of future demand, which will cost us more in the near term, but is what the right long-term thing is for our customers and the company.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Alex Potter with Piper Sandler. Please go ahead.
Great, thanks. Was wondering, you mentioned how you'd like to increase your purchases of cells from suppliers. Does this require them to also have the capability to build structural 4680 cells of the sort that you're putting in these newer iterations of vehicles?
No, it does not. Although we are talking with them about making the 4680 form factor, but it is not required. For example, the new S currently uses the 18650 form factor, so they're just a more advanced cell, and we think we'll continue to use that form factor for at least a few years. But we will over time be retiring the form factors and trying to move to a consistent form factor. So, but it is not a requirement that we place upon our suppliers because it would just result in fewer cells. So it's better for us to deal with the complexity of different cell form factors than insist on a single form factor for our suppliers today. Like I said, over time it will make sense to have a consistent form factor.
Okay, makes sense. And then one additional, maybe qualitative question on capacity expansion. You've mentioned in the past, access to dollars is one thing, but access to human beings that are sufficiently qualified is another. Have you run up against any issues on that front that would potentially limit your growth in any way? Thanks.
That is one of the things that limits growth or limits the growth rate. It doesn't limit the ultimate size, it limits the growth rate, which is what's the rate at which we can onboard great people and get them trained in the right areas. You certainly can't instantaneously. If you've got a factory that has 20,000 employees, you can't just hire 20,000 people instantly. They're usually doing something else, so they've got to transition from whatever they were doing or move from some other part of the country. And so there's a certain amount of time required for that. That said, we do think that we can maintain a growth rate in excess of 50% per year for many years to come. At least at least 50% a year for many years to come. I think this year we may track to a fair bit above 50%, but we don't want to commit to that, but at least that's what it would appear. And the same again next year. It appears to be meaningfully above 50%.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Joseph Spak with RBC Capital Markets. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Elon, back in 2018, you tweeted about electric vans and how it could be interesting to work with Daimler and the Sprinter. We haven't really heard of anything since, but in the meantime, we've seen a lot of activity in that electric van and last mile space from a number of established players and startups. So I know you said that you have a lot of projects on the table, but can you provide us an update of your thoughts on this market, and is it something you're interested in?
I think Tesla is definitely going to make an electric van at some point. The thing to bear in mind is that there is fundamentally a constraint on battery cell output. If one is not involved in manufacturing, it's really hard to appreciate just how hard it is to scale production. It's the hardest thing in the world. Prototypes are easy. Scaling production is very hard. A big part of the reason, the main reason we have not accelerated new products is, like for example, the Tesla Semi, is that we simply don't have enough cells for it. Like if we were to make the Semi like right now, which we could easily go into production with the Semi, but we would not have enough cells for it right now. We will have enough cells for the Semi when we are producing the Tesla 4680 in volume. But for example, Semi would use typically 5 times the number of cells that a car would use, but it would not sell for 5 times what a car would sell for. So it kind of would not make sense for us to do the Semi right now, but it will absolutely make sense for us to do it as soon as we can address the cell production constraint. The same would go for a van.
Okay, thank you. And then maybe if I could dig into your past on one more item. About 2 years ago at the Autonomy Day, you stated that you're working on the next gen Tesla chip, which was about 2 years away. So is there any update on that front?
To be clear, we're still not, the software still does not fully use the capabilities of the FSD version 1 computer. It is really just an incredibly powerful computer, and I'm personally certain that you can achieve full self-driving with a safe level far in excess of a person just using the full self-driving version 1 computer. The version 2 we expect to be about 3 times as powerful, and this would need to be paired with higher resolution cameras, so it's quite it require a bunch of things to change simultaneously. But we have not been rushing the version 2 of the chip. It's coming along well. It's in good shape, but since we can achieve FSD full self-driving with the current system, it would actually be a distraction right now if we were to introduce the full self-driving, the Tesla FSD chip 2, because it would set us back quite a bit on software, and software is the critical path to full self-driving. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. That's an improvement, but not a game changer. The FSD 2, getting the software to work and getting all the neural nets to be video, that's the game changer.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Emmanuel Rosner with Deutsche Bank. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My first question is about your in-house cell manufacturing efforts. So in addition to building up capacity, some of the goals you highlighted was to cut the pricing or the cost by about 50%, boost the range by about 50% over a number of years. So wanted to know if your initial efforts are trending in that direction. What is sort of like the timeline to achieve these goals? And maybe related to this, how are you thinking about the timeline for the cheaper Tesla, the entry model, eventually?
I think we feel very confident about achieving those targets, let's say over a 3-year time frame. I don't know, Drew. It's not like year one. So maybe 4 years. Give ourselves a little room, but for 3 or 4 years, I'd say. Yeah.
we put together the trajectory, in the battery day, and we're on that trajectory still. I think that's probably the best reference for the cost trajectory that we are on.
Yeah, we're aspiring to do better than what was presented at Battery Day, but we're confident of at least for doing what we presented at Battery Day.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Ben Kalal with Baird. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. Thank you, Elon. Congrats to the whole team. We're trying to put together all the breadcrumbs. If I remember correctly, going back 10 years, you talked about when you had a mass market car on the road that you would step down as CEO and be a chief architect. And then we have, you go into Hawaii to see Larry, and the X.com, and I'm trying to put it all together. So there's a lot of questions there. Thank you.
Sure. I expect to be CEO of Tesla for several years. I think there's still a lot that I'm super excited about doing, and I think it would be hard to leave a lot of these great projects halfway or partway done. So I do expect to be running a company for several years into the future. Now, obviously, nobody is or should be CEO forever. So I don't expect to be. It's like the sheer amount of work required to be CEO of Tesla is insane. I think I do probably more. Well, I definitely do more technical work than is typical for a CEO. So it would be nice to have a bit more free time on my hands, as opposed to just working day and night from when I wake up to when I go to sleep 7 days a week. It's pretty intense. But I think the mission isn't over yet, and we've still got a long way to go before we can really make a dent in the world on accelerating the advent of sustainable energy. The goal of Tesla from the beginning has been to accelerate sustainable energy. But if you say what percentage of cars on the road are electric today, it's still very, very tiny, like on the order of 1%, or I think less than 1% of the total fleet worldwide. So that's still a hell of a long way to go for on the order of 1% of the fleet is electric. There's also a tremendous way to go on solar power, although it's exciting to see the advent of very cost competitive wind and solar and geothermal. And of course we need a large volume of stationary battery packs. Basically the three legs of a sustainable energy future are sustainable energy generation via solar, wind, geothermal, and hydro, and a few others. And I'm actually not against nuclear fission. I actually think nuclear fission is, with a well-designed reactor in a situation that is not subject to bad weather or seriously bad weather, is actually a good thing to do. So, but then the second thing you need stationary storage. You need batteries because most renewable energy is intermittent. The wind doesn't blow all the time, the sun doesn't shine all the time. So you need a lot of batteries, and they need to be very long lasting and high cycle life. And then you need electric transport. And if you have those three things, we've got a very bright future with respect to energy and the environment. So it's a long way to go on that, and so I'm still very much fired up to work on that.
Fantastic. And let's take the last question, please.
Thank you. Our last question will come from Gene Munster with Loop Ventures. Please go ahead.
I was happy to see the update on the timing of semi, and had a couple related questions. And first, since semi trucks typically travel predictable highway miles, will Tesla Semi be the first to achieve full autonomy?
I think that's quite likely, yes.
Fantastic.
Yes, I can't imagine. I'm not sure who would be number two, but yeah, it seems highly likely, yeah.
Okay,
The
and then
same hardware, it's the exact same part numbers on the semi than it is on the Tesla cars. There's no difference.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, as it is, we need to modify the parameters, software parameters change for autopilot or full self-driving because it needs to know if it's in a Model 3, Model Y, Model X, or Model S. And so this is we just inform the vehicle, or inform the full self-driving brain that it is now in a semi-truck.
Okay. Would it need to be retrained then as part of that?
No. I think there will be you'll have different control functions because there are turns that you could do in a regular car that you cannot do in a semi. Like you don't want to try to parallel park this thing on the street in city. It needs to know its limitations. Being a giant truck.
Makes sense. My follow-up question was related to if you could just help explain why battery electric will win versus hydrogen cell fuel tech.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've had this question a million times for regular vehicles, even back in the early Roadster days, even before we had the Roadster out. People were saying, that somehow hydrogen is going to be a better means of energy storage in a car than batteries, and it's like this is just really not the case. Hydrogen is it's number one on the periodic table. It's got very low density. It's got low density as a liquid. It's like styrofoam level density as liquid, and then it's only a liquid very close to absolute zero. So you have to have it's really not realistic to keep it as liquid. You want to have it as a high pressure gas that has even lower density. So you need a gigantic fuel tank volumetrically, and it's got to be very high pressure. It's a big pain in the ass, basically. If somebody was going to say use an alternate chemical energy storage mechanism to hydrogen, I'd say they should use propane or something like that, or methane, or those would be way better than hydrogen. And then having it be a fuel cell just adds even further complications to the situation. It's just crazy, basically. And we're extremely confident that we could do long-range trucking with batteries. the amount that works out. If you just take, say, watt-hours per kilogram of currently available cells, and say, okay, how many, what weight would you need to go? Let's say 500 miles, and to what degree does that affect your payload? And it's like, okay, you can do this if you do it right. You basically have no effect on your payload, or almost nothing, and you can have a long-range truck. I mean, Jerome, do you want to add to that?
No, I agree with everything, and we see also an increase on the regionalization of trucks, and I think it will be perfect. The Tesla Semi will be perfect for it, yeah. And I'm looking forward to having some additional ones on the road very soon.
But basically, we do not see any issues with creating a compelling long-range truck with batteries. Apart from cell supply. Cell supply is the only thing. Cell supply is it. Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. So thanks for all of your great questions. And we will speak to you again in about 3 months. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's conference call. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.
So there we go, everybody. Thanks for listening to that. So what do we think of that? There's quite a few little tidbits of information that I heard there. We've got full self-drive transfer is not coming. They've confirmed that is not going to happen, but a subscription will, which they have previously referenced. But there was a lot of hope, I think, myself included, that people could transfer full self-drive. So it is what it is. Someone in the comments, I think, said, should we run a sweepstakes of how much that subscription is going to be? What do you think that would be a fair amount to pay per month, Andy? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Josh, what about you?
Sorry, I missed that question. Sorry, well, I'll just catch up on a couple of comments.
That's right. What do we think Full Self-Drive subscription will be in your head?
I think it's going to have to be probably at least sort of, I'd say probably £200 plus, I'd say, per month.
It's a big number. Yeah. Andy, what do you think?
I was going to say, on my Model 3, I bought FSD, and it added $100 a month to my repayments. Right. So I would say for me, if it's more than $100 a month, it's not worth it. Potentially on a deal, you might as well just buy it and pay. And of course, remember also the difference between FSD that we have in Europe and the FSD in the US.
Oh, good point, yeah.
Because our FSD is barely more than what what EAP used to be, really. Whereas for now, yes. But maybe, I mean, that's a whole other discussion, isn't it? Yeah. Whether we'll get it further in the UK or whatever. I mean, but yeah. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do a UK or European price point. Right, it's £50 a month if you want that, but in America, it's the equivalent of say £150 worth.
And will they split it out? Because I wanted it for lane changing. I mean, if they did it like you pay so much per feature, then you could sort of buy. Well, I want someone, I want this, and you pay for that, and to hell with the rest.
I think they do well with that because didn't they bring an enhanced autopilot back afterwards, after FSD was the one and only option. I think it was only a short period. But personally, my Model S has just got enhanced autopilot. Obviously, I'm planning to probably switch my car next year. So I'm quite glad at the minute that I didn't go FSD. But you never know what's around the corner, do you? So it's a gamble you take.
That's true. So we've also got Andy Rickson here that's joining us as well. Hey, Andy, how are you?
Hello. You all right?
So how much do you think Full Self-Drive would be on a subscription basis?
Well, I think the same. It's got to be well over 100. I'd be surprised if it was under 200, really. Because Full Self-Driving just gives them that lump sum for no extra hardware costs.
Yeah, makes sense. So the other thing they referenced was that a third less service appointments are taking place. So in theory, which would go alongside Munro's report, the Model Y and Model 3, fresh out of factory, are of a better standard than previous. I don't know if that's the same in the UK, whether that's sort of transitioned yet. That I thought was an interesting stat. Any thoughts on that, anyone?
I mean, I'm happy to sort of comment on that. So my Model S is a 2018 build. A Model 3 is barely done any miles, but 2020. The quality for us personally, we've seen the Model 3 is much better quality. So my car does have MCU2, etc., etc. And I've had a number of issues. They've all been solved. However, the Model 3 just feels as though it's built better. I mean, there is still bits that the Model S and the Model X seem to, quality-wise, be a bit nicer. But in terms of build quality, I personally have seen improvement in the Model 3. And obviously that will have been improved again now. There's a 2021 version. We took delivery of the Model 3 sort of like March last year. So, yeah.
The other issue will be, will Shanghai and Berlin have an effect? And the other issue will be, will it be much better for them that they're not transported for 3 weeks in the ship?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, some of that paint scratches and marks and etc.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then again, you've also got you then avoid the California paint laws and things like that. So will that improve paint quality issues, wearability?
Yeah, it's bound to. So the next big point was the new Model S and Model X, which we've sort of touched on it before at the beginning, but I'm sure most people watching this have even looked at the photos and the new changes. They have confirmed that the new S and X are using the 18650 cells, so they're not moving to either 2170 or the even larger, the number comes off the top of my head, I can't remember it now, the larger cells, the Coke can ones. So they're not going to that point yet. They didn't confirm, I think, for Plaid Plus, because that clearly has a bigger range. I mean, it's hitting 520 miles of range, so something's going on there. But they have said they've improved the 18650 cell and will continue to buy those, and they need as many as possible. Any thoughts on that?
Well, they did on Battery Day. Didn't on Battery Day they said the Plaid, or what they were then calling the Plaid, which is now the Plaid Plus. Didn't they confirm then that would be the 4680?
Yeah, I don't know whether it was actually said, but I need to look back. But yes, I think it was definitely inferred minimum. Yeah.
And then of course the other car that's meant to have it is the Berlin Y. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I saw there was a debate in the Facebook group about whether they will really stick with the same battery and then change it. And it looks like that's exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah, they're going to do it. And I think quite a few people, I think myself included, actually thought we'd go to a new cell at this point, but clearly not. They've made some improvements elsewhere. Next big thing, I think, was electric van. They've always teased all different things. You know, the camper van, electric camper van has always been sort of hinted at a few times. Electric van, they need to compete with the other companies making those. Andy Rickson, any thoughts on one of those?
Well, I want one because I think it'd be. I've got 2 young daughters, and they're getting to the age now where having an electric van and just touring around Europe all summer just sounds perfect. I don't know. I can see them sort of making some kind of sort of skateboard that they use for the Cybertruck, and then some other sort of commercial vehicles as well. But I think the problem Tesla's got is they've got so many potential vehicles they can make, and it's the cell production that's screwing them over. So, you know, hopefully this Elon coming over to the UK means we're going to get some sort of cell plant here. I don't know. I think the big problem is we just seem to be, for UK and right-hand drive, we seem to kind of be getting forgotten about a little bit with this new Model S being delayed. It's
Why do you being delayed?
Well, in terms of it's saying 2022 on the website.
Yeah, because I thought Josh made an interesting hypothesis, didn't you, Josh? Where you said, could it be because it's going to be built in Berlin? Because they do seem to be moving to, they will only build, or they want to only build cars in the region where they're sold.
Yes, yeah, and I think it would make sense if they're making changes to production now. I'm just thinking from a practicability point of view, like would they put a brand new right-hand drive lining now in a factory in California when they've got plans for Berlin to be live by the end of the year? Is it worth it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I mean, the one point with that is
into Berlin.
The one point with that is right-hand drive and left-hand drive are on the same line, so it's just a matter of bringing in the extra different components realistically. But yes, I think
it's going to be easier for them to do a left-hand drive car if most of the cars they build are left-hand drive.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember is if you look at the photos of Berlin in the documents that they sent out, it's a focus on Model Y. There's no focus on the Model 3 factory photos. It says Model Y factory, and then you see what is pretty much all of the factory. With Shanghai, they show it and say Model Y is at the front and Model 3 is at the back, but there's no reference to that in Giga.
And there's SRX. So are S and X going to continue only from Fremont?
I mean, the scale, the comparison of the numbers, for me, it would indicate that they were going to stay with California for S and X. Y and 3 are just so big in comparison. I mean, it's less than 10% of the cars are an S and X, let alone right-hand drive versions of that.
Julian's making some good points in the chat about the new interior is probably easier to swap.
Yes.
And I know the X was very late to the UK, and one of the reasons for that is they did have a real issue getting the right-hand drive for something, but they obviously solved that because they've been building them for 3 or 4 years. So it makes you wonder. I suspect there's a different issue why we're getting it so late. So I actually think Josh's hypothesis is probably wrong. I don't think they'll build them in Berlin, which is kind of agreeing with you. But it's like, I wonder if it's, dare I say, the B word that is the problem of why they may be late. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's, for me, would be is clearly an issue. But there's boats coming past the UK and they already are unloading 3. So why would they not just put?
Exactly. And as you said before, they're doing the same in Norway, right? They come direct from as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure the same boat drops off in the UK, then goes to
Oslo or wherever.
Well, it was the first stop of just the name.
Zeebrugge.
Yeah, Zeebrugge.
Yeah.
And then jumps up to Norway and then comes back.
I mean, sort of chucking a total different viewpoint on it. Is it a? I mean, I'm not sure on the US stats at the moment, but are they still struggling with demand for 3 and Y in the US? And they're maybe just thinking factory space is better focused that way. And the S definitely still going to come from California, potentially S and X. However, they're thinking at the minute, are we so concerned about building right-hand drive models? I mean, Elon alluded to that, didn't he, a little bit in terms of they are certainly thinking of it now from more business point of view than they have done previously, when he said there's no point making the Semi yet, which requires 5 times the cells, which is our limiting factor, and it doesn't make 5 times the amount that a car makes.
Yeah.
So I mean,
so just coming on that point, S and X production year on year is 10% down for S and X in 2020 compared to the previous year, and deliveries is down 3% year on year. So there is clearly a drop. Obviously, for at least the last quarter, there's been lots of speculation there will be a Model S refresh, X refresh. So
that will go up. They will eat them up because of the refresh. Maybe he just thinks the US market will take all the S and X they throw. I mean, to be honest, I'm just pleased that the X has survived. After people all saying, several people saying, well, the X is for the chop.
Yeah,
it's survived, which is great.
Which is a good thing, yeah. So moving on. So we've got app changes, which there's always going to be the odd thing that gets changed here and there. Something that we've requested, certainly in the UK, for 3 years. Is communication within the app, and I think it's been hinted on a few times. It's still coming soon to typical Tesla, so you'll be able to speak via the app with also watching where the service technician is, so you would be able to see on the map, look, they're 3 stops away, a bit like Amazon Prime. Expansion of service centers and superchargers has been good in 2020. We already really knew that. 2021 is rumored, at least in the UK, to be as good, if not better. So that's positive news. The full self-drive version 1, I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but they said full self-drive version 1 is enough for full self-drive. The clues in the name. From what I was trying to gather, I presume that means what the cars have, what we would call hardware 3. Yeah, we all agree with that. But version 2 would be 3 times as more powerful, and I couldn't quite understand whether they meant the previous or the existing would need higher resolution cameras.
I think he was alluding to the next generation chip.
Okay, so
because when they announced AP3, they actually said they're already working on AP4, didn't they?
Yeah.
And didn't they sign a contract for a 5 nanometer chip or something? Last week or so?
Yeah, I think that was was that announced on Battery Day, that discussion?
Yeah, no, I thought there was very recently where they've signed somebody for a really tiny, because I think AP3's on 13 or 14 and the new one's on 5.
Sure, yeah. And Elon then said software is the critical path to full self-driving, and getting all of the neural networks to be video was key. Let me go through. So we've touched on full self-drive, but there was a reference to being able for Tesla to license that out to other companies, which is quite a big thing. Buy a brand new, I won't name a brand, but a car that doesn't have quite so good software, and all of a sudden you've got Tesla's expertise on software. That might be a pretty big thing.
It's quite interesting, is that, because surely there's going to have to be minimum hardware requirements. And so obviously these cars that are going to license that are going to have to invest heavily in the hardware to Tesla's specification, or Tesla are going to have to invest a hell of a lot more development time to support other platforms, which I don't see them doing.
They'll sell the chip, surely.
Yeah,
They'll
that's what I think.
the computer as well. Yeah.
They'll do what Mobileye did. I mean, that's what whole of Mobileye's business.
Yeah.
You look at pretty much every car in Europe has got a Mobileye system, except Tesla. So again, they referenced the access of superchargers to other third parties. That's been referenced numerous times. I mean, from day one, it's been referenced with always the slight caveat that they will never publicly say how much do you have to equally invest in this. Andy Rickson, do we think it's ever going to happen?
I think it's going to happen for some of the smaller brands, like when Rolls-Royce and Bentley and companies like that get their EVs. I can't see a Rolls-Royce driver struggling with an Ecotricity or something. They're going to want the best, and it's Tesla. Be interesting if there's someone as big as Mercedes came on, because they'd need such an enormous investment to increase the numbers. So yeah, be interesting.
And certainly we think Porsche owners might quite like it, but
they'd love it. Yeah,
I think Porsche would do it.
But
I did see a comment the other day, and I think it was on I think it was Alex Voice. Do you follow Alex Voice on Twitter? And he said there's some people at VW who are quite disappointed with Ionity, and I don't know why, because obviously they're amazing.
It takes 40 minutes to start a charge.
Yeah, it's like,
at least in my experience.
So, and of course, VW effectively owns Porsche, right? So it's like, why are they so disappointed at Ionity? And it's like, well, wouldn't it be funny if that's what they talked about at that hangar? Something like that. I mean, Herbert Dice and Elon.
Yeah.
Who knows what they really talked about when they went out on that model on the ID4 on their own? What did they really talk about when no one else was there?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So the next thing was Tesla want to increase battery purchasing from third parties, which is clearly a given. Semi truck cannot go ahead because they don't have enough batteries. So do we think that's going to happen anytime soon? I mean, most seem to be at capacity already.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'd like to know what. I mean, obviously, yes, they're saying they can't manufacture, but is it a raw material problem? Is it physically a time-consuming problem for manufacturing the cells? Or I'd be interested to know a little bit more on what the limitation actually is. And I think, again, back on the battery day thing, it was all sort of promising about battery cells and production and everything else, wasn't it? There was no mention of shortage, and that seems to have come out of nowhere, really, for me, certainly. I mean, I've not seen anything on it. I don't know if you guys have.
But they did talk about lithium mines somewhere in the US, wasn't it? They wanted to develop a lithium mine. So I wonder if it is. And obviously, it shouldn't really be cobalt because they're going to move away from cobalt.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's access to lithium, and that's where the worry is. Even though it's quite abundant.
Potentially it's maybe permission to mine that lithium, even if it's not a raw material issue. But it'd be interesting to know a bit more on that, I think, to see.
Well, we'll have to get our battery expert from Battery Day to maybe do us a talk on an event. Yeah, Ewan.
Yeah.
That might be worth finding out. So last year, 2020, large capital raise. They discussed all of that, and obviously within the investment documents, if anyone wants to read that, it's quite intense reading, but lots of numbers there. And Elon, again, focusing on the three major things, which is renewable energy, stationary storage, and electric vehicles. But interestingly, did reference nuclear power for, I think, at least the first time I've heard it. And he was, for it as long as it's capable of withstanding, the odd hurricane or that sort of thing. Any thoughts on that?
I wonder what he thinks of the Rolls-Royce. Is it Rolls-Royce who wants to do the small reactors in the UK?
Yeah, there wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because they build them obviously for like submarines and these huge battleships and whatever. So they kind of build them anyway. It's like, well, I mean, who knows where that's going to go? I mean, the main issue, because I've got a friend who works on nuclear disarmament, the main issue is the fact you can make bloody bombs out of them. So her idea is to make bombs out of them. Quite happy with it. So
whilst you're talking, I'll just show my screen. So this is the Rolls-Royce UK Small Modular Reactor, pioneering intelligent power generated with certainty.
I think any mention of the alternative technologies is quite interesting, isn't it? Because someone obviously asked the question about hydrogen as well, and I had a lengthy discussion with somebody at Toyota about that quite high up a few months ago, and they genuinely believe that hydrogen is the way to go, and it's. I mean, it's hard to tell the future. There's obviously a lot of inefficiencies in hydrogen and the mass and everything else, but Elon sort of like the people tend to want to ask Elon that question. He's always straight down the line as no, it's not. It's not the place to be.
He's even getting tired of it, isn't he? I've been
you can tell in his voice.
Yeah.
But it's good to have in the discussion, because anyone who's on Octopus Agile would have been quite scared recently of the prices when the wind drops and the sun goes in. We definitely need more. We've got a bit of an advantage in the UK. We have sea next to us, but there's not much tidal energy available in the centre of America, so it's not really a priority for Elon.
Yeah, very true. And there's, I know we should try and find out more about some battery storage in the UK and maybe go and have a virtual tour or something, because I don't know much about them and whether there are many about. I hope in many ways there are, but maybe that's something for us to look into. Roadster, no reference. There was nothing, was it really, was there?
No, and again, Julian put a great comment up showing, surely if the Plaid is under 2 seconds, what is the point of Roadster other than to get your hair blown around? I mean, what is the point?
I mean, it's damn sexy. But...
I mean, I think my
you've on them.
I think my main response to that and my main question is, Will, so when you heard that, did you get that tab open that you've had open all night, and did you place the order?
See, no. I've been very close. The problem with it for me is that it hasn't hit all of the things that I wanted. So I did a list on the Facebook group of my wish list for Model S, I don't know, a few weeks ago. And there was a few things that it doesn't still have. And it's so frustrating because for me personally, so it's things like the soft closing doors for X. S still doesn't have, unless it comes out in the next couple of days that it does actually have that. And it's such a simple thing, but the amount of S owners, I mean, maybe it's just me and my family and friends, but you get in the S, you shut the door and you're like, oh, still not shut. You have to open it up and slam it. And it's like, that one thing would, if that had it on tonight, I think I would have probably ordered. A foot sensor for the boot and trunk. It's so sad that I want that, but it's really useful. They didn't reference the glass on the S and X, whether that's now the new double thickness one. That's obviously better for sound deadening, but also potentially heat as well.
You don't need the sound deadening if they're going to do an artificial noise thing to get rid of outside noise.
Fair point. They did reference the heat pump, I think, within the stats somewhere. There is a heat pump for S and X. What they haven't announced is whether the inverter cooling is superior on the S and X compared to the 3, because previously the inverter would always overheat after, I don't know, 15 minutes of really heavy driving around a track, that sort of thing. They've not referenced that. That would be key for me. I need to find that out before I'm going to buy one.
But the 3 doesn't have that problem, does it?
Yeah, so they did it the other way around. So the cooling goes through the inverter first and then into the motor, where the S and X goes the other way around, which means the inverter overheats on S and X.
I'm sure they'll make that the same.
You would hope so.
Yeah.
One other thing I noticed on the spec page was the Plaid Plus says less than 1.99 seconds. So what are we hedging our bets on? What do you think?
What was Roadster?
I mean, I think that was the same, wasn't it? It was less than 1.9, wasn't it? Or was it the extra performance pack or SpaceX pack said it was quicker or something like that? So I'm wondering what they're actually going to get to.
It's, I mean, at that speed, I mean, it's even 0.1 of a second is a lot. I maybe think 2 off. The horsepower is only what, 90 brake horsepower different though?
It is,
it's not a major thing. It's still presumably the same motors, but it's just that battery, isn't it?
But the battery must be at least 50% more, right? So therefore, I don't know.
And that's the one thing that I still haven't talked about is the supercapacitors and whether that would play a role.
I think 0 to 60 are going to be limited on tyres.
Yeah. So one thing Andy noticed
Certainly going to get to that point, isn't it?
is the tyres on Model S, at least the plaid edition, are now 265 at the front, which is the current rear size. So potentially they will increase the rears as well. Maybe, do they do a 285? I guess.
Oh, they will, yeah, or even, yeah. Well,
go over 300s, but
okay.
It's the capacity will take it.
345 in the early mid 80s.
Yeah.
But the one thing with the S, Elon did say they're going to have another event around the new S in a week or so.
Oh, okay.
That's totally unannounced. So he said that right at the beginning.
Okay. I must
either later this week or next week. So God knows what that
is. Event, yeah. And again, for me, Model 3 style key and Bluetooth, that was key for me. They didn't reference any track mode systems, which again, top of the range vehicle. Yes, it's much bigger than 3, but would be nice to have at least some form of party mode. And they did reference USB-C throughout, although I wanted a few different extra bits. The cabin heating, they did reference the new cabin heating. And I also asked about 180 cameras at the front, which we have seen on Porsche. The Porsche Taycan has, I think, on the back and the front, which is really useful for backing in or going into a supercharger, or not if Ionity charger for Porsche. And again, the rear cross traffic alert system, which is bizarrely on our Hyundai Kona, which is really good. You're reversing out of anywhere, and if a car's coming from either direction, it says, stop, there's a car, which the Tesla doesn't do, which is really frustrating. Dechromed, S and X are now dechromed. They didn't reference any of the upgrades to charging. Maybe we'll find out in a week's time that the CCS sort of 350 kilowatts.
I imagine that's because it's the smaller market, isn't it? It's going to be the same in the US. I imagine that their sort of US connector, I think it'll be, again, very much an afterthought for the UK.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to need to have the adapter then, because the way the charger plug fits in behind the light.
Yeah, I mean, there was no photo on the photos that we've seen. There's no changes to that.
Yeah,
it's nothing like the Chinese Model S, which has a
maybe
fuel.
The European model, so then you don't need the adapter. Maybe they will put a CCS, and the only place to put it is in the side, right?
Yeah,
fit in because the lights are the same.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they redo the lights, because then we won't have.
But they didn't. If you look at, because you have that US site, the lights are identical.
Same, yeah. What else? We saw some changes to the interior, obviously that center console area, but there's no additional things like contrast stitching. It's very typical Tesla. There's 3 options, and if you like them, you can buy them.
And just on that, I think surely they're going to have to. They're going to add more options to that, because. I mean, this is obviously very much personal preference, but I'm not a walnut fan. So if I'm wanting to go white interior, I'm probably wanting carbon with that as a nice black dark contrast.
Which you can get, but you have to buy plaid.
Right. Okay. So I didn't see that on there.
Yeah.
Fine,
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So it's going to have to be sort of black and black.
I can see the tears.
Yeah. I mean, there's several people on our suppliers directory on the website, which I'm sure could find you a solution. Not naming any names, there was a full selection of companies. We saw cooling in the front seats back. No massage chairs. I quite fancied that as a little treat. They did reference upgraded brakes. Andy might be better to discuss that. What was there was a word, carbon something in the brakes.
Carbon ceramic.
Yeah, but it wasn't carbon ceramic. Let me pull up the thing.
And surely this is for the Plaid S, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine so, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
So carbon sleeved rotors.
Wow.
Does that just mean...
Rotors are the actual discs, aren't they? That's what the Americans call the discs.
Yeah. Now that is available on Plaid Plus and Plaid, which also has torque vectoring, the 3 high performance drive units. It'll be really interesting to see the range. So the Plaid is saying 390 and the long range is saying 412. So it's similar, I think.
Oh, difference, is there?
Yeah, and then Plaid Plus jumps massively up to 520 from 390. So quite a considerable difference with those batteries, but probably a longer wait for those. What else? Exterior lights. So they didn't reference any of the front lights changes. Hopefully, fingers crossed, in a week's time, there's more. There's Model 3 2021 edition, although there's already a newer version of that.
Well, if you see the pictures that Teslarati have and the bit of video they've shown, I think those lights look slightly different. I mean, they're the same shape, but I think they look different.
I discussed earlier with off stream with Andy Rickson, Andy number 2 down in the bottom right, and I seem to agree with you, Andy. I think to me it looked as though there was maybe even 2 lines of LEDs on the picture I saw. Obviously, it's very limited.
Just to clarify, these are the photos that were leaked on the test track. Is that right?
Yeah.
Sorry, the photos I'm also talking about was on the Tesla website when it was live. It looked on one of the exterior photos, although the shape of the actual unit itself looked the same, the internals of the lights and the pattern of the LEDs looked different to me.
Okay, I can pull that up here. So
Teslarati have it, I think.
Does that show? No, it's not showing. Let me show. So this is Tesla.com, but in the US. No, it's not. No, yes, it is. No, it's not. Sorry. This is UK. The US one's got a slightly different selection of photos. So let's just pull that up there.
So just on that there, where you had the front view, I'm not sure if it could even be reflection on the photo, because you know what Tesla like with their fancy photos, but it looks to me as though there's additional or slight difference in that front headlight.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a reflection. See, sort of like the bottom left-hand corner. Don't know if you can see. You can't see my mouse, can you? Can you?
Yeah, just
this area here. So that maybe
also through the middle looks slightly different to me.
Yeah.
Because the way I spotted it was when you actually loaded the configure Model S, it showed the current Model S first, and then when you click to the next page, it flashed to that. And it looked a bit more obvious at that point, but who knows when it comes, I guess.
I mean, fingers crossed for that, because from what I've heard, the 3 and certainly the Y new lights are really good. So that'd be nice to see. What else? New center console we discuss. No reference to the internet browser, whether that changes, because the screen is obviously a different format, different shape, and I believe maybe someone can check a higher resolution to Model 3.
I would assume so, because it's 17 inches, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we think the pixel density is higher. No grab handles, I noticed, in the front at least. They're very old, but when you take someone
You're
round,
going to need those in a Plaid, aren't you?
Yeah, when you're doing 0 to 60s with a family in the back, grab handles might be important. But what we did see was door pockets, which we did reference earlier, which to me is not really a big thing, but I know it's sort of a long-standing joke that why does my car not have that? It would appear that there's still no tow bar, I don't think, or even on the long range, which is a shame. I don't know if anyone else has got any thoughts. I'd like to.
That could come as an option, because if I remember rightly, was it on the 3 originally, or did it come later? On the very original 3, I don't think it was an option.
No, it came later, isn't it? And it's mainly on the long range, isn't it? Because you can't get it on the performance for some reason.
I think you can. You didn't. You certainly couldn't use to get it on the performance. I think they brought it back. Maybe they didn't. I can't remember. Oh no, sorry. It was the performance negative. P minus. Yeah, because those were pretty rare. I'm just having a look now. So yeah, Model X really is the one for towing, which for me it would just be a bike rack. That's the only thing I want for it to save my interior. Right, and the price increase. They've announced $10,000 price increase, and I couldn't quite clarify whether that was now or it will happen.
It already has, isn't it?
I don't know. I haven't looked at the Tesla.com prices.
It looked to be live. I think saying that, I'm not sure what the UK price was previously. It was for long range now. It's 85 grand roughly base spec.
And then
So-
maximum is what, 130. And then you've got full self drive on top. So you're hitting probably, I mean, plus the paint, plus the most expensive paint's 2.5, 4,400 for the wheels, then 2,000 for the interior.
You're getting near to 150, aren't you?
Yeah, so you're £146,000, which is £4,000 less than I paid for mine 3 years ago.
Well, I think
and then it dropped 50 grand. So
Porsche have kind of made these ultra high EVs at sort of 150 grand plus, a little bit more sort of normal, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, the top range Taycan was 180, 170.
Yeah, and the way Porsche options happen, it's bonkers.
But to be fair to Porsche, they have brought out was it 78,000 or 80?
Yeah, the rear wheel drive only.
Yeah, bringing the price down a bit. And that, I think, is pretty much it. Was there any other points that I've missed that you guys want to reference? Or
I think there'll be a lot of minor changes that they've not really talked about. Because I remember my S, the amount of sort of drive shaft rattles and things like that I had were just really annoying. So I think it would be interesting to see the updates they've done on those type of things. And because the thing is, although it's annoying for us as owners when these problems go, it costs Tesla a lot of money, and that must really irritate Elon. So especially like the lights, I'm sure they're going to change.
Yeah, I mean, the issues with condensation, that sort of stuff in the lights.
It shouldn't happen.
The frustrating thing is, yes, other brands have it, but Tesla could sort it in a different way. I mean, the ability to basically repair those lights is borderline impossible at the moment. And it wouldn't take a lot of work to make the same light unit, but with a better way of repairing it.
And especially
at the very least.
As well with the burnout LEDs, it's something they need to address. So that's one of the things for me. I'd be hoping that those lights, maybe those things that we are seeing, hopefully they are different, even if it's only ever so slightly. It's a different LED or something.
So Mark's just joined.
The same. 2170 or 4680, they're neither.
We're still 18650s, and they are slightly improved. They've not given any more information on that, but there is supposedly another event with more information on Model S. The one thing they didn't really talk about at all was Model X. There was no real,
because the X is in a month's time, isn't it? Because I read the S is building now, launching early Feb, and then the X is launching early March. So I wonder if they'll do an event for the S now, and then they'll do another one for the X.
Small teaser maybe at the end of the event, and then a full event.
Maybe I mean,
more mileage out of it.
One thing I think maybe we just do before we finish up is just to go through the website, just to have a quick look at what has changed, and then we'll call it quits, because it's 1 a.m. I'm sure there's not many people. We've got about 40 people watching still, but for YouTube afterwards. So can you see that on your screen? Yes, you can. So we have Model X, long range and plaid edition. This is US because they've got slightly better photos. Obviously, you can go on the UK website at the moment, but I think you have to hack it and type in the URL as opposed to go to the Tesla.com website and click Model X and S, because they've actually
we
removed
will put
those
links in the description for you.
Yeah, that's a good shout. So we've got long.
Is that a performance increase? 3.8 seconds for a standard X. That's because my 90D sure was 4 or even 4.6, 4.7. That's quite an increase in performance.
Yeah. Well, presumably, what was the performance version though?
I think the performance was 3.2, 3.3.
Yeah, 3.3, something like that.
Yeah, and now that's down to 2.5. I mean, that's down to that's what your car does.
Yeah. Yeah, which is great. I mean, the one thing I would never recommend anyone does is go in the rear seat of a Model X and then get someone to do a launch around a corner. Honestly, it's the only time I've actually been like, I'm not feeling
So Mike Cullen has just said it's now back live on the UK site.
Oh, okay. So forget everything we just said. It's back on the website. Clearly, someone was freaking out and changing it. The colours haven't changed. It's the same colours. The wheels for X have changed. So we've got, I think, the Cyber Streams with this new black in a bit, which is similar to the 3-wheel. Is that right, Andy?
That's a very free look.
Yeah, very free. And then going up to the 22-inch turbine.
Very free look as well.
Yeah, they've got that sort of inner edge. I mean, if you remove that the centerpiece of each blade, that reminds me of the current wheels or some of the other wheels.
That's more aero, I think.
Yeah. And obviously, if you go to plaid, you then get the red brake caliper as it increased caliper size. Future details. Yeah, so 3.8 seconds, not 60, 2.5 for plaid, range of 360 miles for long range and 340 for plaid, and the top speed of 155 or 163. That's pretty standard.
That's interesting because the S is 200 now, isn't it, for Plaid Plus?
Yes, maximum speed. Yeah, exactly. Now into the interior. This is the same interior, pretty much to the S, excluding the windscreen and obviously it being slightly taller. I think everything else is pretty much the same. You've got it in black, white, and they've brought back cream as well, which hasn't been about.
That carbon just looks so much better than the wood.
Yeah. So if we go back
Really
to long range and then back to interiors. And then, you've got the walnut decor. And, walnut decor there. And then on black, it goes to an ebony wood there. So it's slightly darker. I can imagine lots of people will want to swap over to either carbon effect or the carbon. But obviously, you've got a bit of a jump in price. The 5, 6, 7 seaters are standard. And then full self-drive. So that's pretty much all your settings, isn't it? Do you think you're going to go for one? Any of you?
Not certainly not the X. I don't think. But like I said at the start of the stream, before the actual earnings call itself, I'm maybe tempted by Model S next year, but it'll depend what happens with 3 and Y for me.
I just say those wheel covers look awful.
Yeah, if I went for that, I certainly would be going. I think my configuration for that would be midnight silver with the other wheels.
Or maybe colours do exist, Josh.
Pardon?
You know there are other colours than silver.
Yeah, well, maybe black then, maybe black. But the black just marks quite easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, the black would be my preference. For me, I don't particularly like the white with the dechrome.
That's interesting.
I've always been tempted to do it, and every time I've just stopped myself.
Those are very arachnid-looking wheels, aren't they?
Yeah, they're very, very similar. I think they're flatter.
They are, yeah. But again, it's all about aero, isn't it? Because again, they've got the interior filled in, or the rim filled in as well.
Yeah, and that is the thing with the arachnids on the back of my.
Yeah,
are they?
They're actually called arachnids.
Oh yeah, they are. So there's the new version of those. I mean, unless the photos are deceiving, my rear arachnids stick out around this centerpiece.
Yeah.
Here. Which isn't so much of an issue, but it is what it is.
The other thing that's interesting is there's still Michelin tyres.
Yes, although as we mentioned earlier, is that zooming in or not?
No.
No. So actually,
Michelin.
265. So these are Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's, but 265 at the front. Obviously, we don't know the backs, but that is a change. Very similar interior to Model X. Again, you can have the different color options, and if you jump up to plaid, you get the carbon interior.
What do you think of the steering wheel?
I'm not sure. I can't see it coming to the UK like that, to be honest.
The one thing I like about it is that you got the picture where you see the view from the driver. Is that you would completely see that instrument, the instruments.
Yeah.
I'll
find that photo.
It was on the document. The PDF.
I'll find it.
And aren't the controls different? Because you said there's no stalks, are they?
Yeah, no stalks. So you've got. I presume it's a bit like a haptic feedback button, but I'm not 100% sure. You certainly no stalks at all, which is a bit of a change. You've got the rolling wheels similar to similar to 3 and Y, and they look like the newer versions, because I think the original 3 and Y ones were just plastic, but these look like they're metal. Let me pull up it's probably easy to pull this one into here. Let me just load that.
Page 13 of that, Will.
Page 13. Oh, thank you.
There
we go. Yeah. So you haven't quite got a HUD, but you've still got that sort of screen, which lots of S owners love. And I think quite a few have actually said that they wouldn't move to anything unless it had either a HUD or that sort of screen.
Can we zoom in on that wheel, or the whatever they call it? Can we see?
What's that?
Because it's almost, so they're the indicators and the lights, right?
Yeah, so you've got lights at the top. You've got horn. Is that a horn icon? That looks like a horn icon there. Then you've got microphone. I can't quite tell the other two. There's 2 more there. Then the scroll wheel here and the scroll wheel there, and then lights here.
There's potentially buttons on the back as well, where you'd have paddles in some cars.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. It doesn't look like it's going to be great for turning, which is quite important.
Really, really quick.
I mean, for me,
you're not going to be sort of, if you're trying to sort of go around a tight sort of car park or something.
Yeah,
they're not going to want you to sort of cross your arms over.
Yeah, Ferrari. I think Ferrari have it, and I think Lambo have it. And I know
not liked.
If you watch like something of like a Ferrari, the newer ones, they go, yeah, it's really great, and then you come to do and then you're like, especially if you've got the wheel right over, what is left is right and what is right is left. It gets really confusing.
It'll be interesting to see if they reference, maybe they do a fly-by-wire steering or something, so you could adjust it. So if you wanted a more traditional feel with the full motion, you've got it. But if you just want, a tiny adjustment to give a big steering input, maybe that's something they can do now with those digital controls. Pedals look the same. You've got I'm just trying to know. So this is the wooden interior, isn't it? So I'm trying to work.
So what's that fabric on the side?
Yeah, that's literally what I'm looking at. Yeah. You've got the button here, similar to 3 and Y. There's presumably down this section here will be that same pull area to open the door. Screen looks very similar. I'm just trying to see.
There's somebody up in LA who's getting one of these that we can do a event.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What's interesting is it's got chrome. It's got chrome interior.
Oh, yeah, on the outside.
Along these doors, along here, around the screen is all chrome, which they got rid of.
Interesting.
So I wonder if that's just, and again, in the back here, look at these photos, back has got chrome. And if we go to the
back seats, because someone actually said, "Oh, there's no middle seat." I think there is a middle seat.
There is.
There is a middle seat
when you fold it up, but it does look hard back. To remember, they did those individual seats.
Executive.
Executive.
So I presume that rear must still fold down because they have a picture of a bike in the back, don't they?
Yeah.
So the rear seat obviously still folds.
But again, so let's look at the interiors here. The white interior has the chrome, and the cream interior has chrome. Around the screen, it's black though. Actually, there's no chrome on the screen.
Yes, so it's like rear screen, Julian. Have we got a picture of the rear screen? The one in between the seats.
Sure. Yeah. Let me go back to here. But that seems really odd because why have they gone? They've dechromed the outside, but then they've gone back.
Yeah, there you see it.
You can see the screen there. And again, chrome around there.
What would be awesome is if you could have Netflix playing through some wireless headphones for your kids in the back seat.
Yeah.
And then you have Spotify or something in the front.
Which I don't think would be difficult if they're talking about the wireless controllers and things like that. And they're going to have, I imagine the wireless controller is going to run off some sort of Bluetooth or similar.
Mm-hmm.
And that screen can, I imagine, I would hope so, it's going to sort of act totally individual to the front screen and let the kids do what they want type thing, or the passengers in the back, or your exec. But I mean, those seats look quite wide. There's two outer seats, like Andy was saying, that they do look very much the executive wide.
Yeah, they do.
But then I wonder what it feels like actually having to have a middle passenger. I mean, I've never had one. I've probably had like 2 people in my car max, but interesting
But
change.
the S has always had a very narrow central seat. It's a real pain if you've got car seats and ISOFIX. You just can't get into the socket.
And interestingly, the bolsters on both of those outer seats look like the original generation new. I can't remember what they called it, but the newer seats. And do you remember people were saying they were moaning that they couldn't fold flat that back?
Because of the depth. Yeah.
And they've obviously also got the wooden / carbon at the back here as well, which I don't think
those back. I'm trying to remember if mine in the S in the back are they adjustable? Those headrests.
No, but I noticed also that my S, which was 4 or 5 years ago, had a center headrest, which was really annoying because it was right in the middle of your rear view mirror. But that looked like it's gone. So actually, you'd be able to actually see through the middle,
or at least looked adjustable. I think it looked. If you go back to that other picture, I think it may be still there.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard to tell if it's actually just folded down or if that isn't there. Yeah.
So going back to the audio, you were saying about the wireless. Why could they not just have the noise cancelling? You've got 22 speakers in there. Can you not blast noise cancelling from the front audio to the back so you can't hear what's in the front?
Well, who knows?
That'd be cool.
I don't know.
Or at least directional.
Audio geek.
You could certainly do something with the directional audio if they. I don't know. I don't think you'd get rid of it entirely, but you could certainly make it less of a problem, shall we say?
Yeah. So finally, the exterior. There's what appears to be a new bumper at the front. This section, the top section looks identical, I would say, but that below section looks like it's wider, more aggressive, which hopefully is an indication that there's better cooling for the battery and inverter with more air. Unfortunately, more space for a magpie or bird to fly in. But
where's the number plate going?
Yeah, where is the number plate going? I mean, this angle doesn't really do a good job. Let me just.
I think we're going to have to wait for this other event. I think to
I mean,
closer look.
I don't think that photo does. It makes it worse looking. If you then look at this now in comparison to that one, I think it's the shadow or the rendering that looks fine, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks a lot flatter.
In red. Yeah, I think there is definitely a different front, but not much. The only other thing that I noticed was the lack of a Tesla T on the indicator, which is the same as the 2021 Model 3 and Model Y. They've removed that tiny little Tesla T. I don't know why. That's it. Anyone else notice anything from the exterior? Obviously, D-chrome.
That looks great, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. If I was buying one right now, that is what I'd buy. All black with the arachnids.
Yeah, it's nice.
But everything else looks the same.
Is there a spoiler on the back for the plaid?
Yes.
You can just see it, can't you?
Interestingly, slightly larger, or it appears larger than I.
There's something there. Yeah.
Is the front on view, Will, just the best view for looking at, for example, the front screen? Or it might be even the one previous, looking from the inside out. I thought from the front image, I didn't know if the area behind the camera was slightly smaller, but it doesn't look to be.
No, it doesn't look to be.
The same. No.
And of course, you mentioning cameras. Has it got an interior camera? I assume
it does. Apparently, I read that earlier. I did read that it does have an interior camera.
It does, yeah. Okay, well, that's a major point for full self-driving in Europe, because that is one of the requirements to go. I don't know, one of the speeds. Interestingly, on the seats here, so the difference between the long-range seat and either of the plaid seats, you'll see it's a different side bolster. Not a major change. You've got, I think it's actually just the perforated. It's the perforated edges.
Right. Okay.
And you'll see there is a very small grey outline around that seat on the plaid.
It's got a grey stitch, yeah.
It's not. I don't know if it's a grey stitch or if it's a. But it's similar. It's like the gap between the two, potentially. That's the only other change I can see. But yeah, no, I can't see any photo.
And they kept, I assume there's still the door
yeah,
handles that
you can,
come out.
I don't know if you can see that. Can you see the camera? You can actually. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom in. You can actually see the camera, interior camera on that photo. If I just can't show you it. It's
right at the top.
It is viewable, yeah, at the top. Sorry, Andy, what were you saying?
I've lost my train of thought now.
You asking about the door handles?
Oh, door handles.
Yeah, the door handles look, they're the same as normal.
Yeah.
Interior or exterior?
Exterior.
Exterior.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they're not like the 3 or Y.
Yeah. But I'd assume they'd be, isn't there, like, I think there's a third generation of the handles now, isn't there, that apparently doesn't have the handle issues? I don't know. I've personally had multiple handles, but
yeah, they've certainly improved them over the time. Perfect. Well, look, I think we'll probably be good. It's now 1:30 in the morning, which is a bit bad of us. But if you have been watching, thank you very much. We've dwindled down the numbers, but there's still, I think, 20 odd of you watching. So good night, everybody. And if you haven't subscribed to a YouTube channel, please do. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all those good things. And yeah, if you want more of these, then just shout. It's mainly just us four hanging out tonight, but it's been quite good fun. And thanks everyone that has been on with me. And thanks, Josh, for sorting out the stream. And yeah, good night.
Thanks.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody. Good night.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Will.